Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Srimad Bhagavatam overview class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone. We are discussing from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And last time we discussed the wonderful pastime of killing of Pralambasur demon. And after that, we heard how Krishna he swallowed the forest fire. And then, after that, when all the cowherd boys they were surrounded by the forest fire, and the cows they were crying out of fear. So Krishna told all the cowherd boys that you please close your eyes. And then cowherd boys, with their simple, innocent faith on Krishna, they all very quickly they closed their eyes without thinking, without asking a question, because they knew that oh, Krishna has saved us so many times. And Gargmuni had also told, Eshavai Shreya Adhasyad Gop Gokulanandanaha Anena Sarva Durgani Yuya Manjas Tarishyatha, that this son of yours, Onanda Maharaj, will protect you from all the dangers. So, having faith in the words of Gargacharya and having witnessed the wonderful miracles of Krishna, they all closed their eyes, and Krishna, within a moment, he swallowed the entire forest fire and brought all the cowherd boys to Bhandirak Vat. So then, in the 20th chapter, which is entitled "The Rainy Season and Autumn in Vrindavan." So this is a very interesting chapter and very wonderful chapter, in the sense that Shukdev Goswami describes lots of analogies in this verse, in this chapter, gives lots of lessons from the various things which Vrindavan is manifesting in the rainy and the autumn season. So Shukdev Goswami continues that when the boys they came back from Vrindavan, and they told all the Brajvasis what did Krishna and Balram do, how they killed this Pralambasur demon, and how Krishna swallowed the forest fire. So naturally, none of the Brajvasis they ever thought that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. They always would think, oh, Krishna and Balram must be some demigods, and they have appeared in Vrindavan. Their natural, spontaneous love for Krishna and Balram was never covered by the quality of awe and reverence. They were not aware that Krishna is that supreme Lord. In fact, that is a similarity between a atheist and Brajvasis. Both of them they do not accept Krishna to be supreme God, but there is a difference. There is a difference of sky and the earth. that Brajvasis, they have love for Krishna, and because of the love for Krishna, their knowledge of the supremacy of Krishna is covered by the Vatsalya or Madhurya or Sakhya. But the atheists, they do not accept Krishna out of their ego and pride. So Shukdev Goswami, he continues that when Krishna and Balram, they were in Vrindavan, in due course of time, the rainy season arrived. We heard that even in the summer season, which is not so dear to the living entities, nati preyan sharirinam, but in Vrindavan, summer also manifested the characteristics and qualities of spring. You know, Gopal Chadma Maya, because of the Maya of Krishna, even summer season expressed and manifested the qualities of spring. So when rainy season in Vrindavan came, all the living entities, living beings, the plants and the animals and the cows and the calves and the gopas, they all became so very enlivened. The sky began to rumble, and there was a thundering and the lightning, and that all gave a wonderful appearance to Vrindavan. And then Shukdev Goswami now he is comparing every natural phenomena with some of the things of the world. So he continues that sky, it was covered with cloud, and it was thundering, it was lightning, and it was the clouds were covering the sky just like the three modes of material nature, they cover the soul. You know. So lightning is compared to, so purport describes that lightning is compared to the mode of goodness, and thunder is compared to the mode of passion, and the clouds, they are compared to the mode of ignorance. So when the clouds are there, nothing is seen, sky is completely covered. During lightning and thunder, the sky is seen, but when it is covered with cloud, it is not seen at all. That is a mode of ignorance. So Bhagavad Gita also Krishna describes in great detail, and we heard in the Uddhava Gita also about the three modes. Krishna describes how mode of ignorance, it is like the complete covering on the soul, and there's constant competition which is going on between the three modes. And again, Srila Prabhupada he describes in the purport the mode of goodness is a very suitable platform on which we can start practicing devotional service. So when the clouds they started forming in the sky with the coming of the rainy season, it is compared with the pure spirit soul which gets covered with the modes. When he comes in contact with the material nature, he gets covered with the modes. Why this happens? This happens because of the desire of enjoyment. Purusha prakritistho hi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sad asadyoni janmasu. So it is described in Bhagavad Gita also that Purushaha prakriti-stha, because living entities they are situated in this material nature. Purushaha prakriti-stha hi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan. They want to enjoy the modes of material nature. Therefore, karanam guna sango asya, they associate with modes of nature, and then sad asad yoni janmasu. They sometimes take birth in the higher species, sometimes in the lower species. That is the power of the modes of material nature. And Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita that only way to come out of this modes is by taking shelter of Krishna. By the process of devotional service, one can very easily cross this ocean of material existence, which is full of the three modes. Mam chaya vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunana samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So then Shukdev Goswami continues that in the summer season, the sun drunk up the water from various rivers and lakes and the oceans for 8 months. 8 months the sun kept drinking the water. And now in the rainy season, he's releasing the water back, accumulated, whatever it was accumulated. So it is described by Chakravarti Thakur that the sun, it is compared to the king. Sun is the king of the earth, and the water which he is taking away from the lakes and the rivers, it is like a tax. So all the citizens, they have to pay the tax. But the sun, but the ideal proper king does not exploit the citizens, accumulates the tax, and when needed, he gives back the tax in the form of various educational work and the charitable work, various things, public work, sanitation, and and hospitals. That's how the king repays back, gives back the collected tax for the welfare of people in general. And the king, many times, he is so very charitable, he does not even uh, discriminate whether he should give charity to this person or not. He is very much charitably disposed, he gives charity to everyone. So the sun, although he takes the water just like the tax, but he gives back the water without any discrimination. Just like the ocean, the clouds, they rain on the ocean also and on the land also and on the stone also. They don't make any discrimination. Similarly, the clouds, they shower without any discrimination. So in the purport it is described that cloud is like a charitable person who does not make any discrimination. When he opens his treasury for distribution, he does not even make any discrimination. Oh, I should give this charity to this person and not. He gives to everyone. And that is how Mahaprabhu is. Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared in this world and he is giving this charity of love of God to everyone. He is not even discriminating, oh, this person is qualified and not qualified. He is giving to everyone. Ei gupta bhava sindhu brahma na pai ek bindu he na dhana bilaila samsare. Aiche dayalu avatar aiche data nahi ar guna keha nare varnivare. So that is the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Aiche dayalu avatar, aiche data nahi. There is no more merciful than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is giving this mercy to everyone. Apani kari ashwadane sikhaila bhaktagane prema chintamani prabhudhani. Nahi jane sthana sthan yare tare koila dan Mahaprabhu data shiromani. So Mahaprabhu is the best of the givers of benediction. Nahi jane sthana sthan. He is not thinking, oh, this person is qualified, this person is not qualified. He is giving mercy to everyone. Similarly, the devotees of the Lord, they are merciful to everyone. One time, Srila Prabhupada, he was walking with some of the disciples, and there was a hippie who was lying down on the street. And Prabhupada, he pointed to the hippie, and he said, and one devotee, he said, so Prabhupada, you know, who will help this person? How can he become fortunate? Srila Prabhupada, he told, we are his fortune. He didn't say I. No, out of his humble disposition, he said, we are his fortune. Because devotees, they are so very mercifully disposed. They give this mercy of Krishna consciousness to everyone without any discrimination, just like the clouds who are who are showering rains on everything. They are not thinking, oh, this is proper place to rain and not. So it is described, Shukdev Goswami says, the clouds, they are swept away by the winds. Just like a merciful person who is moved away, who is moved by the distress of the people. The clouds are moved by the winds. Merciful person is moved by the distress of the conditioned souls. And then he says, and the purport describes that the lightning in the rain clouds is the light by which they see the distressed condition of the earth. And the blowing winds, they are heavy breathing, because when a merciful person, when he sees the very distressful condition of the fallen living entities, he takes very distressed breath. He feels so very distressed, and he breathes very heavily. So the winds which are blowing the clouds, they are like the heavy breathing of a merciful person. And then Shukdev Goswami says that earth, who had become emaciated in the summer season, but now with the coming of the rains, again it became nourished. It was like a person who does lots of austerity, but when he gets the fruits, he again gets nourished. And purport, it is described that actually one should undergo severe austerities and penances only for one purpose, that is to please the Supreme Lord, that is to attain spiritual realizations, not like the austerities and the penances of the politicians and people of the world who just make a show of all these penances to get some votes. All the austerities should be done only for the purpose of the self realization. As Rishabdev also says, Nayam deho deh bhajam niloke kashtan kaman arhati vid bhujam tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shuddhed yasmat brahma saukhyam tvanantam. Ayam deha, this body should not be used for sense gratification, because sense gratification is available to even pigs and hogs who are eating stool. Then why we should use this body? Tapo divyam. This body should be used for austerity. What is the austerity we have to do? We cannot go to the forest and do tapasya, and we cannot just do fasting also. Now Nirjala Ekadashi is coming. For many, Nirjala Ekadashi is itself a big tapasya. A very distressed condition. Are baap re, Nirjala Ekadashi aa rahi hai. No, 1 month before they start contemplating. Kya kya karenge? So the best tapasya which we can do in our spiritual life in Krishna consciousness is the tapasya of chanting attentive rounds, following the four regulative principles, and don't do any prajalpa. That is the biggest tapasya. To stop from all nonsense talk is the biggest tapasya in this world, especially in this age of internet and smartphone and social media and everything else. That is the biggest tapasya we have to do. Chanting attentively, following the principles, and resisting the temptation of speaking vacho vegam. Then Shukdev Goswami continues that very interesting example he gives now. In rainy season, because there is complete darkness because of the clouds, the glowworm, they shine very prominently, not the stars, because stars are covered by the clouds. Similarly, in Kali Yuga, all the atheistic doctrines, those people who promote that there is no God, there was a philosopher, there was a person called Nietzsche. His philosophy was God is dead. So there are people who tell that there is no God. So Shukdev Goswami says in Kali Yuga, all these atheistic doctrines, they'll become prominent like the glowworms, which shine so much because the stars are covered. And it is described that in Kali Yuga, it is so very prevalent. It is very common to find people who have all atheistic dispositions and the real knowledge gets covered. Cheap mental speculation and all the atheistic philosophies and concocted religions are so very prevalent. You'll find God in every nook and corner of the world. There are people who claim that they are God, or God is dead, or we are God. So, all these are atheistic philosophies. And in the purport, it is described that these clouds sometimes they clear. Even though we can see in the rainy season, even if the clouds are covering the entire sky, sometimes the clouds they separate, and the moon and the stars and the sun may become visible. Similarly, now in this age of Kali Yuga, this is a golden age where the clouds are separated little bit and we can see the sunshine. That sunshine is in the form of the Krishna consciousness movement. Chaitanya avatare vahe premamrita vanya sabajiva preme bhase prithvi hoila dhanya. जे बन्याय जे न भासे से जीव छार कोटि जन्मे कभूतार नहीं कनिस्तार. By the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the river of love of God is flowing. Chaitanya avatare vahe prema amrita vanya. And it is a chance for all the living entities to get drowned, completely soaked in this mercy of love of God. So that is the opportunity given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this movement of Lord Chaitanya, where although the clouds are completely covering this Kali Yuga, but still there is a ray of hope. So Shukadeva Goswami describes like that. And then he says that, when the rainy season comes, with the first rain, the frogs start croaking. Similar, it is like when the Brahmana students, when they get up in the morning, they do their morning rituals and then they start reciting their daily prayers. They start chanting their mantras when called by their teacher. And then he says, in the summer season, the small streams of river, because they were very small, they got dried up. But now again, with the rainy season, all these streams they start swelling up. It is like the person who was very poverty stricken and he had controlled his tongue and urges because he was not having so much facilities. But when he gets facilities, when he becomes opulent, when he gets money, again he becomes engaged in sense gratification. That's how materialistic persons are. Materialistic persons sometimes, because they are distressed, they struggle so much. They just reduce their sense gratifications, survive with the minimum. That does not mean that they have become renounced. With the next opportunity, whenever they get money, again they become engaged in sense gratification, and then afterwards again they become dry. That is what is going on. That is the happiness of this world. It is like chapala sukha, flickering happiness. That's the happiness of the world. Chapala. Bhog Tyaga. That's what Bhakti Samrit Sindhu describes. Prabhupada writes there. Bhog and Tyaga. When sense gratification is available, enjoy life. And then we get frustrated, you give up. Chapala Sukha, very, very flickering happiness. You know, and it is described that everyone in this world they are hankering after happiness, but nobody knows how to get the real happiness, how to be satisfied and be happy always. And when people they engage in sense gratification of the world, thinking that oh this will satisfy me, it is like putting a drop of water in a desert. What benefit it will do? Or a person who is very thirsty, you give him just few drops of water, it will not satisfy the thirst. On the contrary, he'll become more thirsty. That's why the sense gratification of the world does not satisfy and makes a person hanker for it more and more and more. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayo naya evate Adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. So as Bhagavad Gita Krishna says, the sense gratification of this world is pregnant with misery. Miseries has to come. So that is what we should understand. That is what is the proper understanding about this world. Then Shukdev Goswami continues, he says, the beauty of the earth in the form of the grass and the various colored insects came back. It's just like a person who was very poor, suddenly he gets some riches. He becomes completely changed. His lifestyle changes, he becomes so very uh, absorbed in sense gratification. The rains, when it comes, it gives joy to the farmers. But the persons who are not inclined for farming, they become miserable. Just like we can see in the city, especially in Mumbai, when the rainy season comes, everybody is just condemning, oh, why it is raining so much, there is blockage, there is a or overflowing of water, even no drainage facility. But the people who are in the village, they are welcoming the rains. So city people, they don't understand that these rains, if they don't come, we will not even get to eat properly. So that's what Shukdev Goswami is writing there. And then he says that when the rainy season comes, various type of creatures which are there on the land, on the water, and every all the creatures became very attractive because they get their life back. It is just like a devotee who becomes attractive by rendering devotional service. How does a devotee become attractive? It is described that the ornament of a devotee is the etiquettes. The etiquettes are the ornament of the devotee. Sadhu, sadhavo, sadhu bhushana. You know. So the ornaments, the qualities which a devotee develops, it is like a medal which is given to a devotee. Just like when the in the war, when a soldier he performs some acts of bravery, then he is given medals. Similarly, in spiritual life, when we render devotional service wonderfully, nicely, Krishna gives the medals of bravery. What are those medals? The wonderful qualities manifest in the character of a devotee. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati yakinchana sarvair gunais samasate suraha. Sarvair gunais samasate suraha. All the qualities of devatas, they manifest in the character of a devotee. That's how, in our movement, we have seen Srila Prabhupada, he transformed hippies into happies. All the good qualities they manifested in the people who are breaking four regulative principles every day. And Prabhupada writes that, you know, now because we are our devotees, they are following regulative principles, they are chanting, they have become bright faced. And many people would come and tell Prabhupada, Swamiji, your disciples are bright faced. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes in Krishna book there that when the devotees they are dressed in nice dhoti kurta with tilak on their forehead with kantimala and their bead bag in their hands, they look like the residents of Vaikuntha. So that is how the devotional service develops all the wonderful qualities. And then Shukdev Goswami continues. He says that, in the rainy season, the rivers they become full of water, and when the rivers they merge with other streams, there is an agitation. This agitation is like a mind of an immature yogi, which is agitated by lust and other anarthas. So, till the time our mind is not absorbed in Krishna, not purified, all these agitations will be there. So till the time we don't get purified of the anarthas, we have to just patiently keep struggling in this path. Struggle of a devotee pleases Krishna. बध्यमानोऽपि मद्भक्तो विषयैरजितेन्द्रियः प्रायः प्रागल्भया भक्त्या विषयैर्नाभिभूयते. So Bhagavatam describes, Krishna is himself saying, Badhyamanopi madbhakto, although my devotee is conditioned, ajitendriya, he is not controlled in his senses. He keeps falling down again and again. But prayah pragalbhaya bhaktya, because he is very sincere and he is engaged in my service. Vishaya irna bhuyate. Ultimately, he will not be defeated by sense gratification. He may fall down, he may lose some battles, he will not lose the war. You know, ultimately, he will become like a ocean. Currently, we may be like a small puddles of water. Anything comes, small problems, small agitations, mind gets disturbed. Somebody said something, we become disturbed. Some temptation comes, we become disturbed. You know, some agitation, lust, anger, pride, anarthas, all these keep coming, we become disturbed. But the ultimate perfection is what is described in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. The devotee's heart should be like ocean. Bhakti rasa amrita sindhu. It should be so deep, so wide that nothing should affect that devotee. And that is possible. In due course of time, it will happen. Only thing which we have to do is we have to continue struggling, just move few steps at a time. Don't get discouraged, don't get depressed. Then we'll become like ocean. Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudramapah pravishanti yadvat tadvad kamayam pravishanti sarve sashantimapανoti nakama kami. So devotees, his heart becomes like an ocean. He's not disturbed by anything of the world. And then Shukdev Goswami says, mountains, even though they are beaten up by the rains, torrents of rains are showering on the mountains. Mountains are not disturbed. Just like the devotee whose mind is completely absorbed in Supreme Personality, he is not at all disturbed by any dangers. And we can see this wonderful example of Haridas Thakur. Maya Devi personified came to test Haridas Thakur. Our position is completely different. Even if we Maya Devi does not have to do anything, we get disturbed automatically. You know, with whatever is happening in our mind, that is also sufficient to disturb us. But this is the highest perfection of life. Mayadevi comes and tells Haridas Thakur, More angikara karo hoya sade, dine doya karo ei sadhu swabhav hai. Oh Haridas, please show mercy. Please accept me. It is nature of the living saintly people to help the conditioned souls. You know, very interesting. એ તો બોલી નાના ભાવ કરો એ પ્રકાશ યાર દર્શને મુનિર હોય ધૈર્યનાશ. And she starts exhibiting all the feminine beauty. Great saintly people, sober people also could not resist the temptation. But who was Haridas? Nirvikar Haridas gambhir ashay, tahare bolila kichu hoya sade. Haridas, he was nirvikar, not having any agitation in the mind. And out of mercy, he started speaking something. So that is the level of a pure devotee. He has such taste for chanting that the taste of the pleasures of this world becomes insignificant. That is called param drishtva nivartate. This is possible by the practice of devotional service, and Haridas Thakur is showing by his personal example. He says, Sankhya nama sankirtane mahayagya manne tahate dikshita ami hoi pratidine. So he's saying that I have taken a vow to chant 1 crore names in 1 month. That means 3 lakh names every day. यावत् कीर्तन समाप्ते नाही ना करी अन्य काम कीर्तन समाप्ति होइले होए दीक्षार विश्राम. Very interesting verse. This can be the guideline of all the devotees in Krishna consciousness movement. हरिदास ठाकुर is saying जब तक कीर्तन खत्म नहीं होगा मैं कुछ काम नहीं करूंगा. यावत कीर्तन समाप्त नहीं, जब तक कीर्तन समाप्त नहीं होगा आई डोंट डू एनीथिंग एल्स. ना करी अन्य काम कीर्तन समाप्ति होइले होए दीक्षार विश्राम. So if we make chanting priority in our life, then it is possible. So we have to try to elevate the standards of our sadhana. The way we chant, the mood with we chant, we have to really being contemplative every day. How we are chanting, am I planning to increase my sadhana standards, or I am just chalega chal raha, life is going on, chanting, I am doing 16 rounds, no worries. No, we have to plan to increase our sadhana standards. It will not happen automatically. Apne aap pure devotee, it will not pause, it will not happen. Haridas Thakur tells Maya Devi, द्वारे वशी तुम सुमि नाम संकीर्तन नाम समाप्ति होइले करिमु तव प्रीति आचरण. You just sit on the door and hear the holy names. After I complete my rounds, then I will serve you. And then in this way, 3 days Maya Devi was constantly coming. And then Maya Devi says, अरे यार इसका तो जपा खत्म ही नहीं हो रहा है, कृष्णे नामाविष्ट मना सदा हरिदास अरण्य रोदित होइला स्त्री भाव प्रकाश. Every day Maya Devi would show all her feminine beauty, uncovering some of the parts of her body and doing all the things. Krishne nama vishtamana sada haridas. Mind of Haridas was absorbed in chanting. So all these expression of feminine beauty, it was like crying in wilderness. That is a level which is possible. That's what Shukdev Goswami is saying. That when a devotee, his mind is absorbed in Supreme Lord, it is like a mountain. However rains may shower, beat upon the mountain, mountain does not get disturbed. Nothing happens to the mountain. And then Shukdev Goswami continues. He says another very interesting verse. Margah babhuva sandigdha trinay channa hya samskrita na abhyasyamana shrutayo dujai kalena chahata. So he says just like in the rainy season, in the summer season there is a forest path which is created by regular walking. But in the rainy season, because nobody walks, the forest path becomes covered by the grass and the creepers. Similarly, if a devotee does not read the scriptures regularly, na abhyasyamana shrutayo, if the scriptures are not read properly, then our mind will be covered by the creepers and the weeds of doubt. It will be very, very difficult to take out the weeds, because many times we don't even realize this is weed or this is an actual plant. So therefore, every day we have to bathe our consciousness, purify our consciousness with the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrit. Kaviraj Goswami says in Chaitanya Charitamrit, he says, Yai Leela Amrit Bine Khaye Yadi Anna Pane Tabe Bhakter Durbala Jivan Yar Ek Bindu Pane Utfullita Tanu Mane Hase Gaye Koro Enartane. He says, Yei Lila Amrit Vinay. If some devotee is not tasting this nectar of Harikatha every day, Khaye Yadi Anna Pane, and he is tasting Prasad, Tabe Bhaktera Durbala Jivan, devotee will become weak, not physically, spiritually. Yar Ek Bindu Pane Utfullita Tanu Mane, and if he drinks this nectar, even few drops every day, Hase Gaye Koro Enartane. He will become enlivened, dancing, chanting in ecstasy. That is the importance of reading Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita every day. to dispel whatever doubts we have. We should not become sentimental devotees. We should be very, very fixed in our philosophical understanding by reading Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita that whoever reads first 14 chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he will not leave this movement feeling that there is not enough wonderful philosophy. There is such a wonderful philosophy in first 14 chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it is our responsibility. Prabhupada has written these books, you know, without sleeping, late nights, every day, just for us. Prabhupada would say, if you read my book, if you distribute my books, you will stay happy. If you read them, you will stay. So reading is very important. Then Shukdev Goswami continues that the clouds, they are like the well-wishing friends of all living beings. And just like the clouds, sometimes they have thundering also, and they move from one place to another place. Sometimes one part of the cloud leaves one cloud and joins another cloud. Shukdev Goswami says it is like, lusty women who leave virtuous men, their husbands, and go to other men. And then Shukdev Goswami describes that in rainy season, sometimes rainbow also appears in the sky. The rainbow does not rest on anything. It is like the Supreme Lord who comes in this world, but he is not affected by the modes of material nature. Everything is resting on the Supreme Lord. Mattah parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre maniganaiva. That is the Supreme Lord. And then he says, another very interesting example. नरराजोडुपच्छन्ना स्वज्योत्स्ना राजितैर्गणे अहम मतया भासितया स्वभाषा पुरुषो यथा. Just like the clouds cover the moon, although the clouds get illuminated by the moonshine, but the same clouds cover the moon. Similarly, our false ego gets all the illumination from the consciousness, from our soul, but this false ego covers the soul itself. Very interesting example. So, in the purport, it is described that in our conditioned life, we cannot perceive directly the spirit soul because of our false ego. We have our false ego that I am controller, I am enjoyer, Ishwaroham, Aham Bhogi, Siddhoham, Balavan Sukhi. The mentality of being enjoyership covers the pure identity of the soul. And that's how the soul, which illuminates the false ego, gets covered by the false ego. When a living entity falls in this material world from the spiritual world, first thing which happens is he loses his identification. From identifying himself to be the servant of Krishna, the spirit soul starts identifying himself with being the controller, the master. And then the covering of ahankar comes, and then the false ego covers the soul. So that's how we start identifying ourselves with the body. And then Shukdev Goswami says, just like in the rainy season, the peacocks, they become so very joyful and festive and they start dancing. It is like the householders who become so very joyful when a pure devotee comes to their home. It is described by Gargacharya in the 10th canto. We heard by Nanda Maharaj, we heard that when Gargacharya he comes to Nanda Gokul, Nanda Maharaj he glorifies Gargacharya. Mahad vichalanam nrinam grihinam dina chetasam Nishreyasaya Bhagavan Kalpate Nanyata Kuchit. He says, "Oh Gargacharya, great saintly personalities like you come to the homes of all the householders just for their benefit. That's why the householders, they become so very enlivened when a great saintly personality comes to their home." Shukdev Goswami continues. He says, in the summer season, the trees, they became so very thin and dry, but when the rainy season comes, they all become blossomed and enlivened. Just like after austerity, the person who had become so very weak, he becomes again enlivened and healthy by enjoying all the material objects. Materialistic persons often they do lots of austerities, even in the name of spirituality, in the religiosity. They will do lots of tapasya, lots of austerity, but the purpose is different. People may do lots of, follow lots of vrata and tapasya, they will do fasting, but for what? That's important. Most of the time people, they do tapasya for future perspective of sense gratification, which is not accepted by Bhagavatam. नेहयत कर्म धर्माय न विरागाय कल्पते न तीर्थपद सेवाय जीवन्नपि मृतोपि स. It is described in Bhagavatam that dharma, your karma should not, your karma should lead to dharma, dharma should lead to vairagya, and vairagya should lead to devotional service. Otherwise, all this is just waste of labor. Dharmasya hi apavargasya. Dharma should be practiced for liberation, not for sense gratification. Narthayopakalpate. Dharma should be practiced for liberation, for devotional service. Shukdev Goswami continues that in the rainy season, the cranes which are dwelling near the shores of the lake, although the lakes become muddy, the shores become muddy, they are agitated by the rainy season, but still the cranes do not leave that place. They are so very attached to their place, they do not leave even though it is muddy. It is like the householder who is attached. He remains at home even in despite of so many disturbances. Nidraya naktam vyavaye च वावयः दिवाचा अर्थे हया राजन कुटुंब भरणेन वा. Whole day people, they suffer, they work hard, and at night either they sleep or enjoy. They suffer so many problems in the family life. Taking care of the family is not easy, but still, because of some hope of sense gratification in the form of children and the wife and the praise, the respect which they get in society, that binds the living entity, that binds the householders. You know, that is how, even though it is described again and again in scriptures, that the happiness of material, happiness of family life is so full of troubles. Very little happiness, lots of troubles. तृप्यंति नेह करुणा बहुदुख भाजा, बहुत दुख hai. But still, because of little sense gratification which is available in the family life, materialistic householders who are griha medhis, who have made their aim of life sense gratification. Somebody may be thinking, we are also enjoying family life. No, but our aim is not sense gratification. Our aim is Krishna. But because of some circumstances, our conditionings, we do sense gratification, but our aim is not sense gratification. Griha Medhi means his aim is sense gratification. Shukdev Goswami continues. He says, just like farmers, uh, they make some dikes. Dikes means the barriers in their field to store water of the rains. Similarly, the atheistic people, they but so these barriers were there, but when the rain comes, the barrier gets broken. But the atheist, just like atheistic people, they break the barriers of the Vedas with their atheistic philosophies, atheistic conceptions. They manipulate and misinterpret the Vedic scriptures. Actually, Kali Yuga people, they don't even need proper logic to argue. They can argue over anything. Prabhupada tells a story. One time there was a Sanskrit scholar, Vedic scholar, and he was invited by king to debate. And this king had a minister, had his own Brahmana. And this Brahmana, he was not literate, he didn't know even Sanskrit. So this, when another scholar, when he was invited, he thought maybe I should test first. Isko Sanskrit aata hai ki nahi? So he asked a simple question, Kastvam. So he asked this person, Kastvam. Kastvam means, who are you? So this person, he didn't know even this much simple Sanskrit. So he thought, Kastvam, huh? Okay. So he said, Kastvam, 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 Jhastvam, Phastvam. you know, and all his, he was surrounded by his associates, and they started clapping and shouting, wow, wow, just see kya answer diya. He said one word, and our guru has spoken so many words. And this scholar, he started thinking, isko kuch nahi aata, he is dull, he is fool number one. So he thought, what is the use of arguing with him, debating with him? He does not know anything, you know. So therefore, people who are atheistic, you know, they, even though they don't know anything, but still they will keep speculating so many things about spiritual life or scriptures or the Vedas. And about the cranes, yes, uh, the cranes, they are compared to householders. The cranes generally they stay in the shores of the lakes, but in the rainy season the lakes become muddy and the shores become so very soft. But still the cranes are attached to living there. They don't leave that place. The householders, the who are attached, grihamedhis, they continue to stay in the family life although they suffer so many problems. They don't even think about cultivating spiritual realization. When Shukdev Goswami says the clouds, because they are impelled by the winds, they release water just like the king who is impelled by the advice of the Brahmanas gives charity to the citizens. And then Krishna, Shukdev Goswami describes what are the pastimes of Krishna in uh, Vrindavan when the monsoon season comes. So Krishna, when he saw this beautiful Vrindavan forest full of the fruits and the leaves and the jambu trees and the other jambu fruits and the pilu fruits, date fruits, he entered Vrindavan forest surrounded by his cows and the cowherd friends, and he was enjoying the beauty of Vrindavan. The cows, they would be moving slowly because the weights of their bags, milk bags. But when Krishna would call them, they would run out of affection. The milk would drip from the udders of the cows, and they would be so very happy. When Krishna would enter the forest, in the forest, there would be some Pulinda women, aborigine girls of the forest. They would stay, some community, they stay in the forest. So when they would see Krishna, they would become enlivened. Then Krishna would see the trees and the mountains and the waterfalls, and he would become so very happy. Whenever it would rain, Krishna would enter the cave or he would enter the hollow of a tree so that he does not get wet, and he would continue playing there. Sometimes just by hearing the resounding of the waterfalls, he would understand, oh, cave is nearby. That's how Krishna would play. So that was the beauty of Vrindavan forest. And why, when all these wonderful things were arranged, Krishna, he was preparing himself to start his loving affairs with the gopis. So Jiva Goswami describes that when Krishna and Balram they would wander in the forest, they would imitate peacocks. They would see the birds, Chataka birds, and sometimes they would sing, and all the cowherd boys they would become so very happy. They would sit on the stones, they would sit in the base of the cool trees, and they would wear the garland of the kadamba flowers. And in this way, they would look so very joyful. They would decorate themselves with the forest minerals, and they would sleep. When Krishna would become tired, he would sleep on the bed made of leaves. That's how Krishna would enjoy. And after describing rainy season, Shukdev Goswami describes now the autumn season. So in the autumn season, when the autumn season arrived, Krishna and Balram, they, when they would enter Vrindavan, what is the beauty of the Vrindavan? The sky becomes cloudless because the cloud is now gone. Water becomes clear. Very gentle, soothing breeze is blowing in Vrindavan. The lotus flowers were again growing. Various flowers, various different types of flowers, the water bodies which were muddy, they became pure again. It was like the mind of a practicing spiritualist, which has become pure by the process of devotional service. Just like the waters of the ocean, lakes, and the rivers, which had become muddy, when the autumn season arrives, the water becomes very clean. त्यक्त्वा स्वधर्मं चरणाम्बुजं हरेर्भजन्न पक्वो अथ पतेत् ततो यदि यत्र क्व वा भद्रमभूदमुष्य किं को वार्थ आप्तो भजतां स्वधर्मतः. It is described that tyaktva swadharmam, even if a devotee is not able to practice his religious principles, falls down from his path, what is the loss? Because very soon he will come back to the process of devotional service. Krishna will not leave him. There is no loss for a spiritualist. Neha bhikramanasho asti, there is no loss. Navai jano jatu kathanchana brajen mukund sevyanyavad anga samsritim smarana mukundangri upaguhanam puna vihatum ichhe narasagraho jana. The devotee can never give up the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna will not allow. Even if we want to go away, Krishna will not allow. Rasa graha. Chakravarti Thakur writes that if somebody has tasted this Krishna rasa once, he is like that person who is haunted by the ghost of rasa. He will not be able to leave this rasa of Krishna katha. So that's what Shukdev Goswami says. When the autumn season comes, it is like the mind of a yogi, which again becomes pure. In the autumn season, the sky becomes clear. The animals which could not go out in the rainy season, they again become free to go out. The earth becomes clean, all the mud is gone, earth becomes clean, the water becomes purified. In this way, Shukdev Goswami says, just like loving devotional service which is rendered by all the ashramas, whatever ashram one may be, if somebody renders pure devotional service, the faults of the ashrama get purified. And it is described that the brahmacharis in the initial days, they do so many menial duties. But when their superiors they see, oh, now he has become advanced and very capable, then they are given higher duties. The householders, they are so very distressed because of their family responsibilities, but when they take shelter of spiritual life, they became enlivened. Vanaprastha, who are just trying to give up their family life, and that is also so very difficult. But when they develop realizations, the difficulty is gone. And similarly, the renunciants, sannyasis, when they start preaching this Krishna Katha, that is the greatest ecstasy for them. Then Shukdev Goswami says that in the rainy season, in the autumn season, the sky becomes free from all the dark clouds, and now there are white, very shining, effulgent clouds which are there. Sarvaswam jalada hitva vireju shubhra varchasah yatha tyakteshana shanta munayo mukta kilbishah. Just like the clouds, they have given up whatever they have possessed. They have given up the waters. And therefore now they became very shining, effulgent, just like the people, just like the peaceful sages who gave up all their materialistic desires. Mukta kilbishah, they became free from all the sinful propensities after giving up their material desires. And then he says, गिरयो मुमुचुश्चोतोऽयं क्वचिञ्च मुमुचुः शिवं यथा ज्ञानामृतं काले ज्ञानिनो ददते न वा. Mountains, sometimes they release pure water and sometimes they don't. It is just like the spiritualist who sometimes gives knowledge and sometimes does not give the knowledge. So it is described that when we approach a spiritual teacher, a saintly personalities, we have to be in a humble, submissive disposition. Then only the great devotees will reveal their knowledge. And Chakravarti Thakur writes that the Jnani, just like the Narad Muni, Jad Bharat, and Prahlad Maharaj, they gave instructions to various people when they are receptive. Narad Muni gave instructions to Mrigari hunter, Jad Bharat gave instructions to Rahugana, and Prahlad Maharaj gave instructions to the all the classmates. Similarly, when we approach a spiritual saintly person, we have to be in a humble, submissive attitude. When we are eager to receive Hari Katha, then the spiritual saintly teachers, they impart knowledge. So greed is very important. As Rupa Goswami describes, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati kriyataam yadi kutopi labhyate tatra laulyam api mulyam ekalam janma koti sukritir na labhyate. This Krishna bhakti ras, if we want, there is a price we have to pay. What is the price? Laulyam. We should have the eagerness. This eagerness is a right vessel. If we are not eager, then even if the mercy is flowing, we'll not go and receive that mercy. And then Shukdev Goswami says, in autumn season, the water level starts going down. There are some fishes, they don't realize that the water level is going down. And due course of time, they die. Naiva vidvam shiyamanam jalam gad jalechara yatharyur anvaham shayyam nara mudha kutumbinah. He says, just like the fish did not understand that the water level is going down, a materialistic person does not realize that his life is going down. His life is getting destroyed with every rising and setting of the sun because he is so very absorbed in sense gratification. Ayur harti vai pumsam uddyamastan tasyarte yashanau nitau uttama shlokavartaya. The materialist does not realize how his life is decreasing. He's so very absorbed in sense gratification, he does not realize that he is becoming old and he will die one day. just like a miserable, just like a miserly, poverty-stricken person, so very absorbed in family life, he suffers. Just like the fish, when the sun starts increasing the heat, the fish which is in shallow water starts suffering because of the scorching heat of the sun. Similarly, the person who is so very attached to the family life, he in due course of time starts suffering the scorching heat and troubles of the family life, but still he cannot leave, he cannot do anything at that time. Materialistic people, they'll waste their whole life, and then the end of their life they realize, I don't know what to do now, they're just suffering there. And then Shukdev Goswami says, gradually the different lands, they gave up their muddy condition, and the plants, they became ripe. And then it was like the sober sages who gave up their egotism and possessiveness. And then he says that the ocean and the lakes, which were so very disturbed, they become silent when the autumn season comes. Just like the sage whose mind becomes very stable and silent when he starts rendering devotional service. When he gives up all whatever is promised by the Vedas. The Vedas promise sense gratification, dharma, artha, kama. But all these things, bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakali, ashant, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, they ultimately give a disturbed condition of mind. Person becomes disturbed. Krishna bhakta nishkama ataiva shanta. When he gives up all these efforts of Vedic sense gratification, then he becomes silent, then he becomes peaceful, free from any material sense gratification. Then Shukdev Goswami says, just like a farmer who had erected very strong dams, mud banks to keep the water in their field, in their rice field. Similarly, the advanced persons, they control their senses and they don't allow their consciousness to flow away. That is the practitioner devotee. That is a daily activity of a sadhaka, to control the senses. That's what Bhagavad Gita describes. You have to be like a tortoise. Don't allow the senses to wander. Even if one of the senses wander, it will sway away the entire boat. Vayur navam ivambhasi. And then he says, Shukdev Goswami says, the autumn season ultimately gave relief to all the creatures who were suffering. And autumn moon gave relief to the creatures who were suffering because of the heat of the sun. Just like the wisdom of a saintly person gives relief to the materialistic people. And then he says, in the autumn season, the sky becomes free of all the clouds and the stars were visible. Just like a person whose mind becomes very clean of all the contaminations, he can see the Supreme Lord. He can directly experience Krishna in the heart. And then he says, the full moon in the sky, surrounded by the stars, looked like Krishna surrounded by the Vrishni dynasty. It was looking very beautiful. But although everybody was happy, the gopis, they were distressed. Except for the gopis, because gopis' heart was stolen by Krishna. And they were feeling the suffering of separation from Krishna. They were distressed. Apart from the gopis, everybody was enjoying this autumn season. And Shukdev Goswami says, because of the influence of this autumn season, all the females became fertile and they were followed by the male companions. It is just like the activities which are performed for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, they are naturally followed by the beneficial results. Whatever you want in the world, Krishna will give everything. Just by rendering devotional service properly, Krishna becomes pleased. Yat karma bhir yat tapasa jnana vairagyascha yat yogena dan dharmena shreyo bhiritarairapi sarvam madbhakti yogena madbhakto labate anjasa swarga apavarga madhama kathanchid yadivanchati. Krishna is telling to Uddhava, "O Uddhava, whatever you need, whatever anyone needs in this world, everything can be attained by the practice of devotional service. You want the results of karma, results of tapasya, results of jnana, vairagya, dana, dharma, anything you want in this world. Sarvam madbhakti yogena madbhakto labate anjasa. My devotee attains all these results without any separate endeavor. Although devotees are not interested in any of these results, but they get it anyways. Just like Madhavendra Puri, he was not interested in fame, prestige, but the fame was coming behind. Pratisthar bhai puri gela palaya Krishna preme pratishtha chale sange gadaya. Out of fear of fame, Madhavendra Puri ran away from Remuna, came to Jagannath Puri, but the fame of Madhavendra Puri reached before Madhavendra Puri. That is the beautiful nature of devotional service. Shukdev Goswami says, in the autumn season, the sun rose very prominently, became very effulgent, shining, giving life to the lotus flower, and night blooming flowers, they could not grow very nicely. It is just like a strong ruler. When the ruler is strong, when the king is very strong, the citizens they flourish, but the thieves they can't do anything. So therefore, in the autumn season, all the traditional sacrifices and the festivals were performed by the Brajavasis. Everybody was happy, and the earth became very effulgent, very full of lush green forest, because Krishna and Balram was there. The earth, Vrindavan, was full of grains, water, clean, crystal clear water, all because Krishna was there. Shukdev Goswami says, ends this chapter by telling that the merchants, the sages, and the kings and brahmachari students who were not able to go out because of the rainy season, now they are able to go out to perform all their duties. It is just like the people who are endeavoring for perfection. Because of the material body, they can't do everything. But once they attain perfection, they leave the material body and they can go to anywhere, to any destination in the world they want. So that is the end of this chapter. We'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. So we'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Anybody has any questions? Okay, so thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.